It's time for another Dice Tower review with the Chief, Bart Brunchine.
And someone says, how can you play? Because I've had people say, how can you play war games? Who wants to play something with war? Have you ever had that come up? See, I
don't remember ever hearing that. So,
all right, the same deal. I had a discussion over Freedom, the Underground Railroad. My captain, who happens to be African American, didn't like the idea that there would be a game, even a co-op game, where everybody was working toward abolition of slavery and freeing slaves. He didn't think that was a valid game system.
When King Philip's War came out by John Paniski that we were just talking about.
Oh yeah, Native Americans. Oh goodness.
Oh my God, rabid. Right. Even before it came out, there was a rabid response. So you cannot. So there.
Now he eased off when I found out that I can't remember. It was the Black Heritage Foundation had actually had a poorly done game that was being released for educational purposes on the Underground Railroad. Mm-hmm. So, and as soon as I showed him that, which was what you would expect, it's an educational piece done as a game. As soon as I showed him that, that's interesting. Now that brings in several other topics, of course. I have my filter for things, he has his filter for things. But I think even that point being made, I've heard it many times that some people will not get into the wargaming hobby because they picture it as what it is not, in my opinion. Now, I don't go out trying to convince them. They picture it as this blood fest where we're just...
Well, it is for him.
Reenacting.
If you're not killing something, it's not a war game. So for some people, it is.
But see, that's exactly why I think this topic is good. I don't think that's your only... I don't know. Is that your deal? Maybe I'm wrong. If you're not killing something, it's not a war game?
Pretty much not a war.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then there.
All's fair in love and war,
that's what I bring back to. So I'd never thought of what he's playing in terms of that, but that is the questions that come in. I've had people ask me at cons even. Hey, we're playing this nice fun game over here. Why would you want to go play even Zombicide? Or anything that has to do with that frame. So I think even as the discussion goes, I think it's interesting to at least address it. That's addressed, about 5% of the people ever read the comments. So the idea that someone out there might actually say, why would they even play these games? If they deal with this, why wouldn't you just want to play? What would be the difference of if Freedom, someone did play much at Free at Last, someone played the Slave Catcher? Well, I wouldn't want to do that, but that even brought that up in my mind. So I'm with you. I wouldn't want to play that side of it, is because the history. Right? Is the history too close, or is it just too much of a hot button thing? I wouldn't want to do, if they did do a game based on that professor's psychological experiment, I would never openly play who's the most efficient concentration camp guy or whatever. But if I encircle you in Stalingrad and I send my troops in that are untrained and they get mowed down, but I'm able to finally wipe you out, it's how am I able to, because you're right, I'm able to step away from that and just say, I've learned something. I learned how supply was very difficult for the Russians. Or I learned how Germany got so encircled that Göring said he could bring in and match so many tons of supplies, and Göring was full of it. He couldn't get that in. I learned that from playing a game where I actually learned, wow, he was able to bring in about 10% of what he planned, and the guys started starving to death. And so I learned that from a game, and that is some things I pull out of it. But I am simulating a horrible segment of the war.
There was a guy who put a geek list up, and he's from Israel, and he had asked for game suggestions. Is this good? Is this classic or whatever? And he had said his one thing is he doesn't want any games with SS units in it. And you'd be surprised how many people couldn't get over that. You'd recommend a game, Breakout Normandy. Sorry, there's SS units in it. Well, you can just ignore it. Or you can just pretend they're not SS. I responded and said, why don't you just do what the guy asked? There's plenty of war games out there. But, it's too close for him. And I get that's why I said I think the Bull Connor thing may be too close.
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, Bull Connor?
He was the sheriff, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or was he the governor?
See, here's what I was talking about needing history. No, he wasn't the governor. The governor was the dude in Arkansas who stood on the
He was
steps.
the guy that hated the African Americans and actively tried
Was
to
it
stop
Birmingham?
their vote.
Yeah, he had the
Well,
dogs
they
and the
killed-
hoses out. No,
Okay.
I think it might have been Selma.
But
yeah, he had
I
the
know the
hoses. and
name.
when you see the footage, it's usually him with the hoses and the
Right.
dogs.
So
But you know,
he's
the
not a fan
KKK
of-
and stuff like that. It's even though I don't, it's not my heritage. It's still just a little too. You know, I grew up on roots that made a big impact on me.
Okay, so I guess I'll say, to me, it's not the learning about the history, and when I'm learning about even a potentially ugly period of history, for me, it's playing a game. And that's why, you know, for me, it's just like, you know, what we hear is that Judd's most desirable way of playing is two-player games that are war games when he's killing people. For me, I like all kind of games. And so for me, you know, if it doesn't matter to me if it's one-on-one or if it's a multiplayer game, if somebody has taken the time to design a well-balanced game that's fun to play, that's why I play it. And the fact that it's the fact that it's the American Revolution, where some number of British soldiers and some number of American soldiers died, versus drafting the Constitution afterwards, doesn't matter. It's a game. And so that's the thing, you know, that's why if somebody came, if, and I don't remember ever hearing it, but if somebody came to me and said, why would you want to play a war game? I would say, because it's a game.
But that there would be some topics that, even though it's a game, I would imagine you wouldn't touch, even if it wasn't the dishonest professor.
Topic? I don't know about topic.
I mean,
There's some games. I've played Cards Against Humanity once, and I will never ever do that again. But that's not because it's a topic. That's because it's a bad game.
so it was the mechanics of the game. It wasn't like my wife won't play it, or I wouldn't even introduce it with my wife because it turns dirty, sexually dirty.
And that's the thing. There is no game to it other than make the most. I guess I'd have to say deviant, but the most obtuse, you know, the most deviant response that has nothing to do with what you're really trying to do in the, you know, it's dirty apples to apples, but at least in apples to apples, when somebody is saying, you know, slippery, you're trying to come up with something.
Sure.
You're looking at your hand and trying to come up with something slippery. When you see slippery in Cards Against Humanity, you're just thinking, what can I do that is what is the dirtiest card in my hand, because I know that's the one that will get picked.
Now, on the same, I've heard the war game argument in the same genre, and I'm not saying it's any more correct, is some people are not comfortable playing like evil or undead things or role-playing games. Where if they're-
Claustrophobia.
Yeah,
The demon
claustrophobia.
player.
Yeah, where they don't want to, they're religious and they don't want to go in and play a game where their job is to steal souls or to corrupt innocents or to kill nuns or whatever.
Right.
And so I've seen it in that frame, and that's in the fantasy genre usually, although there are some people that don't like Arkham Horror for the same reasons and all that kind of stuff. So I've seen it pop up in multiple different gaming categories. War games usually has that deal. How can you simulate death and destruction and war? How can you simulate evil? How can you
participate in a game that simulates evil?
not going back to, you know, Nazis
Right.
or whatever. Just, you know, there's games that are about demon possession or soul, or even all the bad press that D&D got when I was a kid. And I'd played it a few times, and parents that didn't know thought, oh, they're out, you know, practicing demon possession. So I don't know. So I mean, I think it evolves and comes up. I do think it's not always, but a lot of times it's a bomb thrower. I think that maybe they don't like or enjoy the certain genre. It'd be like if you just got on and said party games. I don't know.
Oh, you mean, well, let's go back and review the tape so we can see what he said about them.
You know, I have thought so hard since then, and I would have changed my 5 because I come up with the night 4, but even then they still stunk. I just hate party games. The one out of the 5 I had, I'd only played one of them. I come up with like 3 I'd actually play, but it's like
I still think I can get you into Werewolf over here, or I want to try 2 Rooms and a Boom.
When I saw Werewolf played at our Christmas party, they were going around, and
but you had a Russian and a sniper. How could that not be fun?
No, I was sitting there, and Bubs had that disgusted look that he usually has when I'm playing some crazy dragon-eating dinosaur. Yeah, and I was like, and he goes, "You want to learn Twilight Struggle?" And I said, "Sure." And we both had that disgusted look. What the heck kind of game is this? But yeah, actually, it's more than just war. It's theme is very important with me. Destruction, death, and chaos is good. It doesn't have to be killing people. It can be killing people with my dinosaur with a cybernetic laser beam.
Okay.
It's about it's a Ameritrash or war game, and they're kissing cousins half the time.
That's why some people, I think, are only comfortable playing that kind of thing in a fantasy realm. I've seen folks that are playing what looks to me, all intents and purposes, is a war game, but they'll touch it because it's fantasy themed. Sometimes that's their comfort zone, that's their happy place. But sometimes I think it's for them to able to say, oh, that's an orc and an elf. That's not an SS unit and a 87 Airborne.
See, and I guess where I am on that kind of stuff, it's just like, even among us here, we've almost had a discussion about what card-driven games are. But card-driven games is an arbitrary term, but people treat it like it's not arbitrary. And it does have a definition in their head. And if somebody doesn't share the definition that's in their head, they're a heretic.
Sure.
And it's my job to proselytize you and teach you the correct meaning of the word. And to me, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of my main even life themes is the only thing you can control in this world is yourself, and I can't control myself half the time. I go out and, hey, I don't want to eat that piece of pie, and I end up having a slice of pie. So in my field, even what I deal with is some of my people that I work with get all torn up because that thing happened or they couldn't control that thing. And I try to remind them, just work on controlling yourself, deal with those things that come to you, and you've got a lifetime of work just trying to perfect yourself, in my opinion. My thing I will say on war games where it's done something for me is it's really made me more empathetic. B-17, for example, this sounds crazy, but I almost feel like I know, this is dumb, but I almost feel like I know the crews of the B-17s as they flew out into, especially in 43, into a very dangerous place. They were the only Americans really going into major harm's way. And they simply, and many of them just didn't return. And as I played that as a 13-year-old, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of 13-year-olds that start to get that feeling, but it actually made, maybe because I cared about these fake, fictitious people I put on the plane, but it made me really start to empathize with the fact that there was losses in war. And I gained a very big positive out of that very early on, that I really, even sitting in my room playing a solitaire game, couldn't believe, like, wow, how did that happen? How did I suddenly get a much wider world perspective on war, loss, young men? And these were not even historical real figures these were people I was throwing on planes or my buddies' names from school, but they became almost personalities, much like Stuka Joe did with the game. Even that, I started rooting for, the tail gunner or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, and for me, it was, he took my name, and that's fine, and okay, now I can stop watching.
All right. But I'm just saying,
I've done stuff in war games where, like, somebody's surrounded and they're going to get cut off. and you probably should let them go and be eliminated, but I try to go break them out just because I feel for it. And sometimes you see stuff where you're sending somebody in on a low odds mission, but it's one of those you feel, wow, that's really hard to be a commander and do that kind of stuff.
It had
Wow.
that.
You guys are way more anthropomorphic about your games than I am.
It's theme, man. It's all about the theme.
I'm telling you that is where I like theme. I remember sending I can go back to both B-17 and Ambush. I sent a plane out on what was supposed to be a milk run. It's 2 zones out. The darn thing gets hit. I think I'd even dropped the bombs. I was already seeing myself sitting at home with the crew, hanging out, and boom, fuel tank fire down, and I was just, I literally had to like leave the game for a while, like a day or two, and I was playing a series, and I know that seems
different.
odd.
It's just different.
Yeah, that's why Euros never click with
Okay.
me, because I can't
Yeah.
get immersed in the theme.
And that's why I can't. If anybody ever asked me something like that, I wouldn't have an answer for them other than it's just a game. That's why the button I wear at all the conventions is it's just a game.
Right. And see, that's interesting because I never really grokked that from your standpoint. Whenever I saw you with that button, for me, that button's always been, there's the guy that's a rules lawyer that's so hung up on a thing.
That's another purpose.
That he stops the entire game and ruins the experience of the game.
Legendary?
Ruins the experience, and I'm sitting there quoting your button saying it's just a game. It's just a game. And it's and that's when it's
another
crossed over.
valid use for that button.
Because that's where your button is totally where I sit there, or someone that's APing for 15 minutes on I don't want to say simple, on a move. It's just a game. That's where I use it, but that's interesting. So
You know, it's funny. I actually tend to enjoy games the first time out I play them if I lose. I don't know. It's weird. If I win it, I have a lower opinion of it. Like there's a lot of Martin Wallace Euros I won. The first time I was like, this game sucked. And then there's ones I get killed and I was like, well, that was kind of cool. Now I like Automobile. I won the only time I played of it. But there are games, war games, I don't mind losing because it's just a game.
I like the
I
struggle.
learn something from it.
I like the struggle. I really do. That's why if I go in, if I'm playing with you guys on something, I would like to win. I will play to win. But if that struggle is there and I feel like I'm able to move within the confines of the game and do something, and maybe theme again is part of that, and I come out of that and I haven't won, that has the fact I've lost almost means nothing to me.
Yeah, you roll buckets of dice and you still remember that time you missed with 10 dice and all you needed was a 5 or
we're
a
back
6.
to
And it's like, those are the moments you remember.
Okay,
They're so
There we
funny.
go. All right. Well, we're out of here.
We'll see what ends up
We'll
happening.
see if this even makes it.
Later.
So see you guys later.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.